As if I haven't already been talking about this iPhone like crazy, it's time for us to go and take a look at the iPhone X and see how this iPhone holds up in the middle part of 2023. Now, a lot of things have changed within this iPhone, so we'll talk about as many things as I can. But I did drop my 2023 review of this thing early this year, and a couple things are still consistent, like the body. Nothing will change of the body once these iPhones are made. We still have that 5.8-inch Super Retina OLED display, and overall it still looks pretty good. There's not too much to complain about here. It's still 5.8 inches. It still looks like a pretty decent panel, and I've always felt like throughout the duration of time that I've owned this iPhone, it was a very decent iPhone at that standpoint, which is kind of what I would kind of throw in there. So still very good size. A lot of people like this size and miss this size, but curved sides too, a lightning port at the bottom, and on the back you have that standard glass back, which honestly still looks pretty good. There's not a lot to complain about there either. So I've always felt like those types of things within this iPhone were some really important things that I actually did like a lot. Dual camera setup on the back too. One of the first iPhones to bring wireless charging, and overall it still looks very good. There's just not a lot to complain about from the body, and honestly, it's probably one of its strongest assets is the way this iPhone kind of looks, which is pretty crazy. Now, the other thing is with this camera, like I said, dual camera setup on the back, wide and telephoto lens, you have a standard camera at the very front, and I think it's an overall good camera. You can do 1080p video on the front, you can do 4K at 60 on the back, and that's pretty decent for a lot of people out there. Although it's not like the first camera I'd recommend people to buy, it's still an okay camera at best nowadays, but this is not one of its strongest assets. I would say the body is overall the biggest asset for sure. The camera, it's there, it's kind of grainy, the video quality isn't really that great either, but it kind of gets the job done, and that's kind of all you need for like a camera like this, to be honest. Now, the software is probably the biggest, L that I've seen on this iPhone so far from the beginning of this year. So basically what had happened was iOS 17 came out, and this iPhone did not end up getting iOS 17, which is honestly a very sad thing. I feel like this iPhone could have easily gotten iOS 17, and guess what? It didn't. And that's just kind of what happens with some of these devices. And that is kind of the problem with some of these phones too, is that you just get an iPhone like an iPhone X, and it just kind of gets, looked away from Apple. I feel like this iPhone should have gotten iOS 17, and because it didn't, it kind of puts this phone in a weird spot. And I probably, this would not be the first iPhone I would recommend people to buy anymore. And I don't know if this iPhone is worth buying anymore either because of that. So that is kind of the bigger issue that we're having with this phone now, is that it's not really worth buying anymore because it's kind of done getting software updates. So it's a sad thing, but that's just kind of one of those things that happens as the phone gets older. So just kind of keep that in mind in the back of your head. Performance-wise though, this phone was still a decent performing phone. It had that Apple A11 Bionic chip inside, and it had 3 gigabytes of RAM, which is honestly a decent amount of RAM to have inside of a device. And I think from that perspective, it's kind of a cool thing that this phone kind of had going for it. But keep in mind, it's not really an iPhone I'd recommend worth buying anymore for the most part, because it's just kind of done getting software updates. So what I would kind of tell you is the way this iPhone holds up in the middle part of 2023 is that it's just not really worth buying anymore. But if you currently own it, I would recommend keeping it for like another year or so, for however long you can keep it. It's probably still going to be getting security updates and different things like that, so you're probably going to be okay. But for a majority of people out there, it's probably not a phone I would recommend buying anymore. So just, if you can, skip this one and go for something like an iPhone XS as of right now, that might make a little bit more sense for me to kind of recommend to people. So in terms of that kind of covers it up there. If you have any other thoughts or questions, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.